Hello, Donna here. Welcome to the members classroom. Now, today we're going to be covering Mica Shift. What you see before you, these are the samples that I made in the process of doing the class. And then here you see earrings that are basically what we will do at the end after I've explained as much as I can to you about Mica Shift, gold, silver, copper, pearl, how to make colors using the pearl, and then of course how to make the chatoyant snail and the spear, and yeah, I do some ghost imaging, although we don't really do that in class. Or did I take that out? I might have taken it out. What started out as a very short little class turned into some kind of polymer clay gone with the wind. So I'm not going to make it any longer than it already is. So let's get started. Now every line of clay, I believe, I don't know anything about cos clay, so I don't know, but pretty much every line will have certain colors that are metallic colors. Like this is my Kato Polyclay Gold. And you know what, I have to tell you, I've not used any Primo, I've not used Cernet, I only use my clay. So let's just start from that perspective. I don't want to tell you that what I'm telling you applies to anything else, just Kato Polyclay. All right, so here's the gold. Now, these metallic clays existed for a very long time, before Mica Shift, before chatoyancy, before we understood what these clays will do. And in the beginning, we perceived the very characteristic that makes it possible to do these things as a deficiency. We couldn't figure out why the clay was shiny on one side, and then when you cut in the cross section, it was dark. And in some respects, it created problems because sometimes that dark edge would appear and you didn't want it to. So while most of us, were sort of like the gremlins that got fed after midnight and asking the companies, please fix it, fix it, fix it, there was one artist who looked at it and said, there's a real possibility that something interesting can happen. And that's genius. The artist's name was Pier Voulkos. And Pier went on, she's the mother of Mica Shift, the mother of chatoyancy. She showed us things you could do with just one block of clay that absolutely were as big as Skinner blend. I mean, we'd never seen anything like it before. So her name is Pier Voulkos. She's not doing clay anymore, but it isn't because she passed away. She's now dancing. She's dancing because Pier's got legs up to the sky and she was a dancer. So, you know, she's dancing somewhere. It's our loss and dancing's gain. So that is a person who figured out all these techniques. Now, there are so many more techniques. I don't know whether there are tutorials about what she did. I actually watched a demo. I'm such a bad student. I can't remember what she said, what she told me. So I was kind of forced to try my own thing, and this is kind of what I came up with. All right, so that's basically it. Pier Voulkos, remember the name? If you love Mica Shift, then you gotta love Pier. Okay, now why does it work? Why is it possible to take one color and make patterns and cane with it? And how is that possible? Why does it work? Well, the answer lies in the makeup of the clay. You see, companies start with translucent clay. And in gold, for instance, it's tinted. You can see what the tint is. See the color on the side? And into that, the infused mica particles. Mica particles are not round, they are flat, and that's why Mica Shift works. You see, as you roll the clay repeatedly, folding and rolling through the pasta machine, all those little flat flakes become aligned. They form a grain, and if they were round, they would form nothing. Okay, so it's the flatness of the particles that makes it possible for us to do these various techniques. Mica Shift, chatoyancy, ghost imaging. This is ghost imaging. And so that's why it works. Now, one of the things that happens with the ghost imaging, just imagine that you have your clay and it's all aligned. And then you take something and you press into the top. Pier used to call this bruising. You're bruising the clay. And in a very real sense, you are. You're taking those flat particles at that space in particular places, and you are pushing them into the clay. You are pushing them down. You are changing the alignment of the particles. When you slice away at the top, you reveal the change in the positioning of the particles. Then you get, see these dark areas like that? Well, that's what this is, right? That's what this is. Okay, so every place where the particles are still aligned, like this, is bright. Everywhere you bruise is dark. Now, I'm going to talk about Kato Polyclay for a minute, because the one thing that was always different about our metallics is that the pigment load is so heavy. Lots of pigment. Not pigment. I misspoke. The mica load is very, very heavy. So what you see before you are some tests that I did. This is 100% Kato, all right? So it does the chatoyant thing just fine. This is 50% translucent. Also, very nice, right? But I want you to look at the surface. See the surface there? See how this piece right in this corner is brighter? I'm trying to kind of move them at the same angle. This, of all things, is 1/3 gold and 2/3 translucent. Look at this. No, it's even better. And the reason why this works is because basically I'm spreading the particles out a little more here than here, and certainly here. Now, the mica load is so heavy that it could, if you put enough mica in, it could turn this metallic clay into an opaque medium. And this bruising technique relies on the space between the particles. I hope that makes sense. But you can see 2/3 translucent, 50% translucent, no translucent. It also creates a shinier surface. This is the 2/3. Okay? All right. So that's why when I do Mica Shift, I add translucent. For instance, this is 50% translucent. This is 50% translucent. I mixed color into pearl clay, but my pearl clay was 50% translucent. Okay. Now here, I believe this was more like 1/3. No, this was 2/3 translucent, 1/3 pearl, and then tinted. So I think you can see how you can play with the metallic clays, particularly in Kato, and you can add, by adding more translucent, you actually improve the quality of the Mica Shift. So here is silver. Now, as I did before, I have adjusted the amount of translucent. So this is 100% silver clay. This is 50% and 50% translucent. This is 1/3 silver, excuse me, and 2/3 translucent. And so here are, you know, the spears, and down here is the ghosting. Now, the one thing about this, and I'll talk more about this later, I know I do. My translucent tends to yellow a bit, and so I noticed on when I was editing that this, the 2/3 translucent, is quite a bit yellower. It's warmer. This is cool. This is somewhere in the middle, and this is the warmest tone. So whenever you use translucent, you have to think about that too, whether it's going to have some effect on the color and what is that effect going to be. Now, in terms of the chatoyance or the depth, I think that the 50/50 in silver for me is the best because it's not as yellow, but it's certainly more detailed than this. If you look, you see, this is fine, except that it's very sort of silver and dark and very little tones in between. And I think that this is much better, to tell you the truth. So you'll want to be doing some experimentation for yourself to determine what these percentages are. And indeed, in some cases, you won't put any translucent in at all. Because the translucent may adversely affect the color or affect it in a way that you don't like. Okay, so that's silver. Moving on. Well, I wasn't going to do copper, but I guess I should. I had kind of a hard time with copper. It's not a color clay that I use very much, and certainly not for Mica Shift, because there's something about the color of the mica and the base color of the clay. There just isn't very much contrast. So you can see there's not a lot of life there, is there? Because there's just no contrast. So I did this. This is all copper clay. And I thought, well, what happens if I add translucent? So I added translucent to this, 50/50. And, you know, it did improve the depth. It did. But not a lot. Then I took and I did 2/3 translucent, 1/3 copper. Let's just see, because this is what I've been doing with all of them. And it just made it paler, kind of paler, but, you know, the thing is, there's not that much contrast between the base clay, as I said before, and the mica. So I thought, okay, maybe I need to introduce something new entirely. So I took pearl clay and I introduced it. I mixed it in and I did it again. And basically what it seems to have done is just make everything lighter. And it didn't really increase the contrast between the mica and the base. You know, it's just the same thing in different colors, in a different color. Okay, so then I thought, what happens if I add gold? So I added a bit of gold clay to the copper, and yes, it warmed it up. It warmed it up, but it's still copper. It's still copper. It looks actually more like a penny now, like a new penny. And you know what? That gold, the gold flecking, increased the contrast. And so this is much more, exhibits more depth than anything else I did. So from now on, whenever I use copper, I'm putting gold in it. Okay. The pearl clay forms a base for these various different colors, okay, that I mixed. And that's what you'll do too if you use Kato, is you're going to have to mix these colors that you want. Now let's look first at basically pearl clay. Now this is pure pearl on the left, and this is pearl with the translucent mixed in. 2/3 translucent, 1/3 pearl. Now this is a situation where I think clearly the pearl without any additional translucent works out better. So if you're going to be using straight pearl, I would say no translucent. The problem with the translucent is that Kato translucent has a tendency to yellow, so it completely changed the color, didn't it? It really changed it, like so. So I would say that if you're going to do any of this Mica Shift with just pearl and you're not going to color it at all, use it straight out of the package and don't put any translucent in. Certainly don't put 2/3 in. You can probably put a little in, but I would not put 2/3. This is the orange and the red with the translucent in the translucent base, translucent and pearl base, 2/3 translucent, 1/3 pearl. And then this is actually straight pearl with the color mixed in. Now, from where I'm sitting, they don't look all that different, to be honest with you. They just don't look that different. They both have the chatoyant thing happening. This pattern is more spread out, so it's not exactly the same. See how these pieces are just more spread out, and these are kind of finer detail because the snail was very small that I made here. So that could possibly be the difference in the chatoyants, but I don't see a huge difference. What I do see, though, is that when I've done and mixed colors into the pearl base, the pearl mixture, 2/3 translucent, 1/3 pearl, I get a more watery kind of look out of it. See, it's kind of a softer kind of look than something like this. Of course, it's hard to tell with the colors, but let's take a look at this. It's just a slightly different kind of thing happening. And this is actually the finer part of the pattern. Wait, let me get something. Let me get this. Now, this is actually warmer. But of course, I don't know exactly. They were not exactly the same colors either. But as the pearl turned a little bit warmer, I think that's probably functioning. That's just happening here too. This is a little warmer than this, right? Because you remember where the pearl kind of, it's more white because it has less translucent. This has more translucent. It turned a little bit warmer. Well, quite a bit warmer. So I'm sure the same thing is happening here too. The additional translucent I added is actually making the whole thing a bit warmer. All right. So what can I say in conclusion? I like mixing the translucent in, but you may prefer 100% pearl and mixing your colors in. And there may be colors too where you don't want any warmth introduced in them. I tend not to work with blues very much and violets very much. I always veer toward the warmer greens and the warm reds and the oranges. These are the colors that I prefer. So this kind of effect is like, doesn't bother me at all. So let's continue. All right, so I've rolled my clay, repeatedly folding and rolling, aligning the particles. And this has been rolled through setting number 3. Really, because it's kind of slightly easier to roll it up And that's why it's setting number 3. There isn't really another good reason. Okay, so now I'm just going to roll it up. Doink, 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 doink. Okay, let's roll this baby up. Roll her up tight. Doink, doink. Just like that. Now let's angle cut over here. Like so, because it's just a little easier to integrate that cut edge in if it's angled. No other reason than that. I'm going to cut the ends. Doink, doink, like so. Now let's take this guy, stand it up on end, and cut away the 4 sides. You will soon see why. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4. Why 4? I don't know. I just do 4. You could probably do 5 if you wanted. Okay, so you see what the chatoy is doing there? I mean, this still gives me a kick looking at that. It's just so trippy, right? All right, so now I am going to make this round. It's square now. I'm going to make it round. Just by lightly rolling. There's a little water on my table. Oh. Now, by rolling in one direction, look at what's happening. Twisting. Twist, twist, twist. Twist. And I want it tapered at this end because I'm going to roll it up into a snail shape. Now, maybe you saw this in my second book on page 65. Books are great. I've written 3 books, but you know, sometimes people want to see the actual process because it is different than reading a book. Okay, so I also do this, you know, manually twist like that, particularly at this end, because you see how much looser it is? I want more twists at this end, at the chubby end. Just because you're chubby, honey, doesn't mean you don't get the twist. Okay, now let us continue. And I'm going to continue tapering this end, like that. That's my oven telling me that something's cured. Okay, here we go. See how twisty that is? Oh, lots of twistiness. And I haven't forget about you. Twisty. Twisty, twisty, twisty. Anybody else talk to their clay? I do. Obviously. Okay, now I'm going to take this and I'm going to turn it into a snail. Now, I don't necessarily have to. I'm going to show you something. See these pieces? Well, that is this without the twisting, without it turning into a snail. This is what happens when it turns into a snail. Okay, so you have options. You could leave it straight like this and cut the sides, or you can twist it. Now, if you're going to leave it straight like this, you cut one side, then you move it and you cut another side. You move it, you cut another side. So you would end up with 4 distinct cut sides, and you just keep cutting and moving and cutting and moving, and that's how you get all of these. Okay. All right. Back to this. Now, starting, I just take my finger with the gold clay all over it, and I just start like that, just gently, because if I go too fast, you know what happens? It's going to crack. So I don't want to go too fast. I just give the clay a chance to kind of catch up. See, this is contracting, but this is stretching. And if I don't give it enough time, it's gonna break. And it won't be its fault. It'll be my fault because I was impatient. So a little bit of patience. Let the clay catch up. It's gonna catch up to you. All right, there we go. We're getting there. It's pretty this way too. I mean, you could just cut it in half and have earrings. I could make that the end of the demo. That'd be easy. But I'll continue. Now at the chubby end, I'm just gonna cut some away so that I have something nice and flat for it to balance on like that. Because the next thing I have to do is I have to cut slices from the sides. Both sides. Okay? Now ordinarily I use my stiff blade. I'm gonna live dangerously and I'm gonna use this little blue blade. And see how we go. Whoa! Look at what we have. Just like that. Cool, huh? Now, when you're cutting these, I want you to lay them out before you, because what will happen is when you make a sheet, you're going to use the worst slices first. You lay them down first, and then you top it off with the good stuff. Ooh, this is a really good one. Okay, and as I said, you cut from both sides. And I'm cutting these pretty thin. I think you can see that. Kind of thin. Which is better because I want a smooth sheet. And if they're too thick, then it means you have to do a lot of, they kind of get very distorted. Let me see. See that? It just gets more distorted if they're thick. Now, this is what the inside looks like right now. Cool. All right, so let me continue cutting. I will assemble all my little pieces and then we will make a sheet. So I'm cutting, and I wanted to stop and show you something, because what happens as you get closer to the center, wherever the center is, that bright line starts concentrating. It becomes like a line, right? This is nicer down here. This is the line. This side is definitely nicer. See, I've hit the line almost already right there. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the other side and continue cutting. I'll be back. So I cut these apart because I wanted more of what's happening in the middle and less of what was happening on the outside. You might have to do this, depending on the size of the sheet you're making, you might have to do this a few times. But this is basically what I have now that I'm going to work with. So I'm going to take some clay and make a sheet, and I will be back. Okay, so I just took some of the slices that I thought weren't quite as nice, and I put them on the clay. Okay, and this clay's been rolled through setting number 3, and it's on a ceramic tile. So now I'm going to start just rolling it, and I really didn't stick it to the ceramic tile. It's just a temporary work surface. Because I think what I'm going to do to this is kind of work it in a bit with my handy-dandy brass tool, like that. but I'm going to roll it through the pasta machine. All right, so let's just get it off. This is why I didn't really... Oh. Okay. Now I'm going to roll it through the same setting. Just to kind of flatten those pieces a bit. All right, now I will continue, and I'm going to use slices that are slightly better, I think. Just position them on. And I must tell you, you might have to make several of these snails, you know, to get the slices that you want. You might not have quite enough material. Come here, you. Stuck in the wrong place. All right, that's better. Let's see about you. All right, what else can I put on? You. Sticky, 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 sticking. Come on, just let me get a grip on you. Okay, you're gonna play that way? Enough. Okay, now let's work these in with the rod. Like so. And the rod does give me a bit more control. I can push parts out just by rolling in that direction. See, mysterious black dots appear. For instance, here, if I want this to sort of spread this way, then of course I actually roll so that it does. Rolling out like that is pulling the clay out with me. Okay. Okay. I wish I could remember all the things that, actually I didn't see that much, but you know, Pier had so many techniques. And I don't know what they are. I'm pretty good at figuring things out, but I'm not sure I could do that. Somewhere, maybe there are instructions, but to tell you the truth, I honestly don't know where they might be. Which is a real shame, because the things she made were absolutely so beautiful. So beautiful. Okay, so as I roll, I'm actually trying to make everything perfectly smooth, but you know, every now and then you might run into a situation where you've got air trapped, and I can feel it and I can see it right there. So I'm just going to pierce and push it out best I can, and then roll to try to smooth that area and make it even with the rest of the sheet. You know, you really can kind of see, and I can actually push it a little bit, and I can see that there's air in there. So if you see that kind of thing, of course, you have to just pierce it and push it out. You'll be much happier if you don't have that. This is looking really good to me. Really good. Interesting. I do have a couple more slices that could be used in certain select areas. Could do that. I can do that. I can. All right, I think that's it. I'm just going to cut some away, and this will just be a sample. Just a little sample. And remember, the gold that I used is 1 part gold, 2 parts translucent. So let me get these 2 in the oven, and then I'll be back. Now what I want you to do, actually, you know what? Hello. I'm going to keep some of it raw, so you can actually, we can compare, all right? So you can see the difference before and after. Same thing here. Uh-oh, where'd you go? Okay, so let's keep this guy raw, and this guy is going to get cooked. Well, here are our 2 samples. These are cured, and then to the right are the raw pieces. I just wanted to show you the difference. Now, there's not all that much difference, but this piece, the cured piece, is definitely deeper, and it makes sense because as it cured, of course, the translucent got more translucent, and when that happens, it actually increases the contrast between that base clay and the mica particles. Okay, so that's the snail, and here is that ghost imaging. So you can see, I think there's a greater difference here than there was in the other. But once again, it's the translucent, you know, kind of clearing up through the curing process. So I wanted you to see that, just the difference, raw and cured. All right, so I prepared the spear, and you can see it's like the snail, but it's kind of pointed at both ends. Now I'm just going to cut it in half, like so. Okay. Now I have 2 to work off of. Now, cutting this is a little different than the snail, of course, because we're going to cut 4 sides instead of just 1, instead of just 2 sides, okay? So first, just kind of carefully cut like that. There's one. Then I just take and I put it on the flat side. Then I cut the next side. I'm not too concerned if they're not perfect. There's a second one. Then I go to the next side and I cut again. Then the next side, and I cut again. And I just keep going. I just keep cutting like that. I have, well, pieces that look just like that. Okay. Another one. And another one. And I have to say that in terms of the placement, I'm not as fussy with this as I am perhaps with the snail. So this gold clay has been rolled through setting number 3, just like the others. And let's just start placing some slices on. Just gonna put it on like that. And then let's take another one. And I'm going to turn it like so. So that you see it dunk like that. I would say it's not all that important that that happens, but I kind of like it. Okay, now let's see, I can turn this one over like this. That's actually the outside, which is, you know, it's not bad. We'll just use, this is the outside, not the cut edge. And let me get this guy like that. So it's sort of an arrangement like this. Okay, so I will keep cutting. Oops, stuck to me. It is sticking more, wants to stick more to me. And then spaces like that just get kind of filled in with little pieces, like so. Like that. So I will continue. And when I run out of interesting slices off of this one, then of course I move to the next one. No biggie. I think I want to turn this around though. Like so. and I will be back when it's done. Okay, now I'm going to take my rod and I'm just going to start smoothing over just like so. Like that. Okie dokie. Doink doink. Looking good. Looking good. Okay, now I'm going to roll this through the pasta machine through setting 3, which is the same setting as the base and the same setting as the other piece. Okay, so once again, I have to kind of scoot this down so I can cut. Sorry. Ta-ta. Okay, now I'm going to reset my machine from 3 back to 1, and I'm going to roll through. And I don't know, that way and that way. I'll go this way and then that way and then that. Okay. All right. I didn't hardly touch it. Now I'm going to put this edge on. I've reset to setting 2. Ta-ta. Now I'm resetting to setting 3, and I'm going to put this edge on. Actually, I changed my mind. I want it to be longer this way. I changed my mind. All right, that's nice. I like that a lot. So now we have our 2 pieces, our 2 basic pieces for our earrings, that guy and this guy. Okay, so let's start by mixing our base. Now, my base is going to be 1 package of pearl and 2 packages of translucent mixed together. Let me get that started. And into that, I will mix my red and orange. Okay, so I've rolled my base clay through the thickest setting of the pasta machine. This is just about half of what I made. Okay, now I've selected my colors, the orange and the red, and these are straight from the package. As I said before, you don't want a clay that has white in it, and as far as I know, there's no white in here, and there's no white in here. These are the packaged colors. The second thing you want to make sure of is that when you mix these 2 colors, you have a color that you're pleased with, because the scraps will no doubt be mixed together, okay? So you probably don't want something like maybe violet and yellow, because when it mixes down, it looks like mud. Of course, that could be fine too. Anyway, just something to think about. Now, I rolled this through the thickest setting of the pasta machine as well. All right, so what I'm going to do now is just cut a square. Or a rectangle. That goes back in my base clay, like so, and like so. Okay. Now, let's take a ruler and clean it off. Clay everywhere. My life, clay everywhere. Now I'm just going to cut from one corner to another. And into this one, I'll mix one of the colors, and into this, I'll mix the other, okay? Then I know I'll have the same amount. And I'm just going to use the smallest cutter in my set. And this is what I'm going to mix, okay? So after I mix these up, I will be back. Okay, so here are my two colors. They're really pretty close, aren't they? They are. Now I have choice here. I can actually make one deeper and increase it. So I think I will. I think I'm going to add more red. Not the same volume, maybe just half. I want it to make that base clay a little bit deeper, a little redder. I'll be back. All right, so I did add that other half piece that I cut with this guy, and now I'm ready to skin or blend. So I'm going to blend these two, and then I will be back. Okay, so here's my blend. Now all of that rolling, folding and rolling, aligned the particles in the clay, and that's why it's really nice and shiny. Now I've got to cut like so. And I am going to roll this through the pasta machine. I'll put this edge on the rollers, and I'm going to roll it so that it's thin, maybe through a 4, maybe a 5, but I want it thin. So I will be back. All right, here it is. I rolled it through setting 4. Now, from this pale orange, I'm going to roll to the red. Okay, here we go. I made another tequila sunrise. Okay. Now, I did this with the Skinner blend, but of course you can do it with a solid color. It doesn't have to be a blend. And that's what the gold is. It's just gold, no blend. So let's cut the ends off, like so. And I think I'm going to make 2 of them. And so I'm going to cut this in half. Okay, set that aside. Now this little guy, let's roll it out just a bit further. Make it just a bit longer. Okay, gonna stand it up on end and cut the 4 sides away. 1. And cut the opposite. I can't see what I'm doing. So I might have to actually turn it. All right, so here you can see the chatoyancy inside. Now, it isn't quite so great because the contrast between the mica flecks and the color is not so great, but you can still see it. Now, I'm going to cut just a little bit more because see on this side, you can see more of that orange coming through here too. There's a little bit here. This is like solid, red. So let me just cut just a tad off. So I expose a little bit of that orange inside. Now here are these guys. And those will be rolled up and they'll be part of the background. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to roll it to make it round again. It's square now, we're going to make it round. Just lightly rolling. And I'm not realigning the particles because of the direction the particles are going. I'm not pushing against them. I'm sort of rolling with the direction they're sitting. All right, now by rolling in one direction only like this, I will start making the rod twist. Okay, I'm going to keep twisting, twist along the length. Like so. And then maybe by hand do a little twisting as well. Now we'll make this one a snail. Like this. Maybe I'll stretch it out just a tad because it is quite short. And at the chubby end, I generally have to do this. Kind of by hand twist it like that. Okay. There we go. Now, if I wanted to do just the spear cuts, like here it is in gold, then I would stop here and just start cutting. But I want a snail, so I have to twist it into a snail shape. And what I'm going to do is just take this tip and just slowly start working it down like that. Not too fast because it could crack pretty easily. Like so. Okay, and just gradually work it down. The addition of the translucent to the pearl also made the pearl softer. You see, all that mica makes the clay a little bit dry. Well, it makes my clay a little bit dry. I cannot speak for many other clays, or not many other, any other. I can't be speaking for any other clays. Now, I'm going to keep a little bit of the original color here. There's the original color. And I'm going to keep the original orange. And the rest of this is going to be mixed up so that I can have a background sheet to work on. All right. But while I have you here, let's start cutting. Now, when you do this, have an area where you can actually put the slices, because you're going to start slicing from the sides of the snail. Here, let me lower this. You're going to start cutting from the slices from the side, and you're going to put the best slices on last, okay? So the slices that aren't so great, they're still usable. You're going to lay those first on your sheet. Then you're going to top it off with the better ones. So let's just start cutting. Okay, so that's just from the outside. Set that aside. Here's another guy. And you cut from both sides. Right now I'm just cutting from one. Also, the two sides of the slice will be different. There's one side. Here's the other side. Okay. I like that side better. And of course, as I'm cutting, more of the orange is being exposed because I'm cutting toward the center. Okay, so that's what it's looking like so far. Now let me turn it and cut from the other side. Now, I decided to do 2 of them because, first of all, we're just making earrings. I'm not making a huge sheet. So I don't really need huge snails, if you understand what I mean. It looks a little softer. This is better defined. That one. See, every now and then you cut a little guy like this. Well, he's probably going to have some place with his name on it on that sheet. And I would say overall, this particular snail is just going to produce a much softer effect than, for instance, well, this guy. You see the amount of chatoyant you have here? And I think that's because the base color is, there's a lot of contrast between the base color, which is this, that's the base color, and those mica flakes. Okay, I'm going to switch to the other side. Cut a bit off. And what will happen with the snail is the closer you get to the very center, the more this line, you see this line here, is concentrated. Until at the very center, it appears to be just a bright line. See here, it's starting there. See that? That's because I'm getting very close to the center of the snail. Or let me see if I can just cut like that to show you. Yeah, here we go. See that line? All right, so let me mix this up and then I will be back. All right, so I rolled my sheet through setting number 4. This is the cutter I'm going to be using for the earrings. So that is the total, and our earrings are half this and then half gold, and with a very thin band in between. So this is this is more than plenty enough to make. Okay, and we're going to be constructing. That was a bad cut. I want this on top. Okay, good. I was going to try to construct both sheets on the same, but I don't think I'll do that. I think it's too dangerous. In other words, I'll finish the top and then I'll start the bottom and then I'll ruin the top, and I'm just going to work two separate tiles. Okay, so I have adhered this pretty well to the tile. Okay, clean your brass rod. I have this problem. My brass rod is always, just has little bits of clay on it. And those tiny bits of clay can ruin something so fast. Okay, I see a little bubble here. I'm going to pierce that. Pierce that. Pierce, 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 pierce. All right, so let's start. Ooh, now I have to pick like the little slices that aren't as good as the others. Maybe put those down. Put one there. Maybe pick this one up that's not as good. Just lay them down like so. Now I will take my clean brass rod and roll them in, okay? And what I want is I want to roll them in so well that when I run my fingers across, I don't feel them. Okay, so that's quite a bit of rolling, even though these slices aren't that thick. You know, it's still quite a bit of rolling. And I tried to make it, the slices that I put on, I want them integrated as well as they can possibly be before I put the next ones on. See, that's pretty nice. I think the effect is going to get even better. All right, so let's just take this whole guy here. Maybe I'll roll him in the other way. Instead of rolling everybody in on the same, in the same direction, because you know, of course, I'm stretching it out. By rolling this way, I've actually made him rounder. Him, her, it. I've made it rounder. Actually, I find this really relaxing. Oh. Okay, I'm just going to do one more, and then I'm going to put the better slices on. Maybe. Yeah, I think so. Okay. All right, better slices. Better, better, better. Better. Yeah, this is kind of therapeutic for me. Just rolling, then touching, making sure. And sometimes you want to close your eyes when you run your fingers over the top, because your fingertips will tell you whether you've rolled something in or whether there's a lump. Anyway, what I meant was that your fingertips are sometimes going to tell you, give you a more accurate picture than even looking at something. Okay, good. Now, let me just take a little bit of this, like just that tip. Put the tip there. Because you will get, see, like this is a very large area where nothing very interesting is happening. So maybe that's a good spot to take a piece where something is more interesting and just plop it in there. That feels pretty good. Okay, what have we got so far? Okay. I think I'll put a little guy up here in this corner. Maybe this one. This is a good slice. I don't know if I'm going to cut up there, but it seemed like an awfully big blank spot. Okay, kids, I think we're getting really close. Close, close, close. Do the touchy thing. Make sure. It's kind of addictive. Am I gonna stop? Stop, stop, stop. You gotta stop. Okay, that's the last one. I'm not doing any more. Because I think I have some nice areas. This is the first time I'm using this cutter, so it's a little greasy. Oh yeah, I mean, I can make a lot. I can make a lot. I wonder if I shouldn't pick a wider cutter. I love this set. This set is one of the, oh, look at this one. Yeah. I think I like this one. This guy. I like this shape. Is there a bigger one? Nope. I think this is the biggest one of this shape, and I think it might also be the only one. I have an oval. Something that looks like a racetrack. Okay, well, this is going to be the guy. This is going to be the guy. He's not quite as long, but I think he's going to be fine. Oh, yeah. Okay. Let me just straighten this out a bit. All right, and that's what I'm going to cut from. But you see, now I have to make the second one, and I'm going to make it out of this. So that'll be the bottom. And then I think I may put either black or gray, something, a band in between. So let me work on that. I'll set it up and I'll be back. All right, so here's my pearl mix. Once again, 1 package of pearl, 2 packages of translucent. I am, you know what, I'm gonna mix all of it. I'm gonna mix all of it, 'cause I think I'm gonna like it. So into this, I'm going to take, and let's just mix in, let's start there, okay? Everything's rolled through the thickest setting of the pasta machine. Same thing here. Let's just try the same, roughly the same proportion of color to translucent in each of my greens, okay? Might be a lot. We're gonna find out, aren't we? Okay, so let me mix these up and I'll be back. All right, so these are my colors, and you can see how much more yellow it was before? Adding the green changed it. It's more green now. Now, this is packaged green mixed into the pearl base, and you can see it's very blue, isn't it? Which means that my green leans toward the blue. All right, so these two colors are going to be Skinner blended. Let me get that done. I will be back. And now, you know what? I think what I'm going to do is make a small one. I'm going to cut this in half so I can actually make two. I can make two of these little snail guys. Okay, so I'm going to take one half, stand it up like so, and cut my four sides away. All right, so I cut my slices, and this is what's left. You can see that line is starting to concentrate, that bright line. And so now I'm going to take a few of these scraps, and I'll take this and I'll roll it out into a sheet, and I will apply these as I did with the gold one. I'll be back. Okay, so there's the first layer. I just took some of the slices and I stuck them on there. So now I'll take the slices that are better. You know what? They're different on both sides, so check both sides of each of the slices and select the side you like the best. Da, 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 da. We shall see how yellow this looks. That yellow. Ooh. Woo-hoo-hoo. Let me put a couple here. Oops. Oopsie. Like so. Well, let me work these guys in and then I'll be back. Now for the earrings, this has been rolled through setting number 3. You see it's pretty thin. I don't like really thick, heavy earrings. So this is a little bit, let's see, what did I roll this through? 3. So let me remove it. I'm sorry I'm off camera, but I had to rest it against my body. Otherwise, I couldn't get it off. What I'm going to do is roll this through the pasta machine through setting 3 again. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right. It's going to be interesting. See how much it changes from what it is to what it will be and how different it will be from this one. So I decided that we could really, we could both learn something if I remade this, right? But this time I turned it into this shape, just to show you the difference in the way it looks. So I'm going to use exactly the same clay that I used to make the original one. I was tempted to make it more blue, but I thought, oh, that's me. That's me. You know, I know the scientific method. I really do kind of understand it. I don't do it, though. And so I decided, okay, I won't change it. I won't change it. We'll stick with what we have. Okay, so I'm going to Skinner blend this. This is how much clay I had left. So it's not going to be big, but it doesn't have to be, does it? All right, I'll be back. Here we are. I'm going to thin this, rolling it through. Oh, I'm already on 2, so it's not the thickest. But let me just roll it through 3. I didn't make the blend longer. I elongated this way. Oh, I could have sneezed. Oh, phew. All right, now we're going to roll up, just like we're making a plug. Because you know what? We are making a plug. Roll the blend back on itself. Doink, 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 doink. Just like that. It's rather long. So I'm going to plug it. Plug it. Oh, look, my tape. All right. Doink. I do need it shorter. How are you doing, mica particles? I hope I'm not turning you sideways. I don't think I am. Well, perhaps just a little bit. But, you know, not bad. They're still aligned, going around like that. The ones on the end might be really the most bruised, but I don't think the ones inside are going to be that bruised. That same bruising thing, right? All right, so I'm going to leave it rather long because I don't want to bruise it too much, but I am going to stand it up and do my very best to slice off 4 sides. Just like sinus problems, so you guys who've watched me know I have horrible sinus problems and allergies and all that kind of creepy stuff. Ugh. Yuck. Okay. And it did kind of crack there, right? That's, I thought it was going to crack like up here. Oh, look at that. Now, does it matter? I don't think so. All right, so let's start cutting our slices from both sides. Twisted, twisted. See? Ooh. Oh, come back. One of the things I do like about this is that if this lime green is too bright, I can just cut it off. I can use the pieces that just the colors that I like the best. Oops. All right, let's cut the other side. So I will keep cutting and then I'll be back. So I put the base slices down and now I'm just going to work them in with my handy dandy brass rod. Handy dandy. Oh, just sliding all over the place. I guess I have to get my Rubbermaid mat out. Actually, I'm gonna cheat because this is the base layer. I am simply going to roll it through Ready, Freddy. Ooh, that spread out nicely. I think this is going to be pretty. I'm going to make earrings. Okay, so I wanted you to see that. That's the demo of making the snail from a Skinner blend plug, not a bullseye. If you've seen much of my work, you probably noticed that I don't have a lot of blue and violet in my work. They're just kind of not my colors, but I should not ignore them because I know many people love them. All right, so I am going to make, well, I'm going to do a little snail action, but I'm going to do it with turquoise and with violet. So how much do I have here? This is a 50-50 mix, 50% translucent and 50% pearl. So let me weigh this. Okay, let me change the unit to ounces. Well, maybe I should do grams. Well, let's see what happens with ounces. 1.35 ounces. So it's 1 1/3 ounce. And this should be about the same. A little bit more, 1.5. So this is 1.5 ounces. Now, these have been rolled through the thickest setting of the pasta machine, which doesn't matter at all. What does matter is what these were rolled through. I rolled these through the thickest setting of my pasta machine. And I used this big square Kemper cutter. So I'm going to work one violet here, and this is one turquoise there. Remember to try to stick with packaged colors that have no white in them. Let me continue. All right, so here are my two colors. Now they're pretty pale, aren't they? But what you're really seeing is the mica, right? So that's why it's even lighter, because your eye is not seeing the base. So let's just stack this and take a look and really see how much that turquoise affected the base. Okay, this is how much. So you see, it is not really that much deeper. So we can actually add, which is what I'm going to do, might as well. Let's add another and see what happens. I've worked in another square of the turquoise. So let's do the same thing and see how much I altered the base with that one additional piece. Was it a lot? Was it a little? What's happening? All right. So I did alter it actually quite a bit, I think. So I'm happy with this. I'm going to continue. Here is the violet. Actually, it looks like a nice lilac. And I think I will also make this deeper. I will add one more square like that. And then we will proceed. We're going to have to Skinner blend, make our little snail, and then we'll see what we get. I've worked the second piece of violet into the pearl base. And here is the blue. So these two will be Skinner blended. I have to get my hair out of my cloth. That's annoying. Help me, help me. I'll be back. I'll be back with a Skinner blend. So now it's time to talk a little bit about blues and violets because they're a little bit different. Now let's go back to this. This is 100% pearl, and this is my pearl mix. 1/3 pearl, 2/3 translucent. Yellow or no yellow, or minimal yellow. Well, what happened was I mixed into the translucent mix, and this is what it looked like raw. This is what it looked like cured. And I had mixed my backing color just with scraps of the two colors. Okay, so you can see that the yellow in the translucent affected the colors. The violets get more gray and the turquoise turned more to the green. Here's the original again. I did a little experiment. I thought I'll take the same snail slices and put them on pearl and the translucent mix. And you know what? The shift was the same, excuse me. The shifting was the same, but because of the background, because of the light color, it's just brighter. But I think it pretty much had the same effect. Okay. Now, what will I do? Well, what do I recommend? If you want something that's closer to this with minimal change, mix your colors into pearl. If you're like me, I'm going to stick with this because I actually prefer these colors to these. Maybe I'm just weird. So I'm going to continue using my pearl mix because I really do like these colors more than these. So you have a choice, cool or warm, and you can dial in whatever you want. Okay, that's it for the Blue Violet story. Now it's time to talk about metals, the metal detail, the metal spine in the leaf, because you have options there too. I haven't explored all the options. I'm just going to talk about 3 of them. One is liquid clay. My liquid clay here, liquid gold. That's what it looks like were you to apply that and cure it. The advantage of this is you're taking polymer clay and you're putting it on polymer clay, and so it's a very strong bond between the liquid and the base clay. Okay, it's a huge advantage. This happens to be acrylic paint, tubed acrylic paint. I made a sheet on black. I just applied acrylic paint with my finger, let it dry, and then I just slice it and apply it just like it's any other color clay. Okay, once it's cured, it is a really good, strong, sturdy bond between the paint and the clay, as long as you don't wait too long and let the paint completely dry. Once the paint's completely, totally cured and dry, it loses all stickum to the clay. Then it's as useful and as strong and as sturdy a bond to you as the last one, which is the weakest bond. Now here you see gold leaf. I use 23 karat gold leaf. Apply it to a thin sheet of black clay, cut it, place it, cure it. Remember, metal does not form a permanent bond to polymer clay. It just doesn't. It sticks when it's raw, and that just fools you into thinking that it's really stuck there, but it's not. If I had not encased this in liquid clay, I could take my finger and just scrape it all off. Yeah. And I hate to be the one to tell you, but there's no real way to improve the bond between the two. You can put stuff on top of it. That's what this liquid clay is. I just encased the whole thing. So you can't even touch that metal. You can't touch the leaf. But if I hadn't done that, then eventually it probably would have scratched off. I mean, you cannot, there's no way to improve the bond. There is no bond. You put stuff on top of it and hope that that will hold it in place. All right? So when you're designing your pieces, you have to bear that in mind. If you use the gold leaf like I did here, if you want to absolutely protect it, you've got to cover it up. Resin, liquid clay, that's what I used here, liquid clay. But you cannot simply leave it. The paint, you can leave it just like that and it is fine. This, same thing. Once I get it on there, it's fine. Now, why would I use this over this? Because, I don't know. I think that when I really thought about it, the reason why this liquid might be chosen over the paint is because while it requires another curing, I was able to completely sand the surface of this pair of earrings. I sanded the surface down, made it really nice and even, and then I applied the liquid and baked it again. This, I can't really sand the two sides because if I sand and if I'm careless, I will sand off the paint. See, let me flash this. Maybe you can see the surface of this pair is much, much smoother and nicer than the surface of this. I'm running my fingers across. I can feel little lumps and bumps. I did not sand because I was afraid I was going to sand that paint right off. This, because I was able to really get on it and sand it like that, and then put the liquid on and then bake it in the oven. The surface of this is so much nicer. Now, is that justification for a further curing, for the fussiness of applying this and then curing it again? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I guess it would depend on your price point if you're selling them. It would depend on your tolerance for whether the smoothness is important to you. It's not of the same importance to everyone. So only you can decide, but you have options. You know, we didn't cover other things like, you know, pigment powders, you know, very mica pigment powders. Those can be used as well. I just wanted to cover these three. So more to think about: this or paint or leaf. Now you know what happens when you use one or the other. So let's talk about encasing. By encasing, I mean a thick coat of some material that encases the piece. In this case, encases and protects that metal leaf. In this case, just because I wanted to. Okay, so this is Kato liquid polyclay on this side. This is resin on the other. Now there's a third option. I could have sanded and polished, and I certainly could have sanded and polished here because it's got no treatment. It's got no gold or anything. There's no paint. There's no liquid clay right down in the middle. There's no metal leaf. I could have just taken this and sanded and polished it and taken it to my wheel. I could have done that. I didn't. I decided to use resin and liquid here. Now, what are the differences between the two? Well, of course, the liquid clay needs to cure. You need to cure it in the oven, and then you need to hit it with a heat gun. You need to hit it with a pretty strong heat gun. I have a heat gun that cost me all of like $13.99 on sale. It's not what I would call a professional heat gun. Now, I'm not sure I need the Milwaukee peel your paint off your wood heat gun, because I suspect that's going to burn up my clay. But I need something with a little more oomph and a little more power, because it took me a long time. Now the process for this is, as soon as that piece is hot out of the oven, you've cured your liquid and it's hot, but it's cloudy. It's probably going to be cloudy unless you've beefed your oven up way, way hot, which I did not do. Immediately, I take this, or I took it, and I hit it with my heat gun for a good long time. And it didn't even completely, totally crystal clear. It's a tiny bit cloudy to me, just a little. But my arm got tired. So I looked at it and I said, you know what? That's pretty darn clear. Okay, I need a stronger heat gun. Now here we have resin. Resin doesn't require another curing in the oven like this guy over here. There are many resins out there. I'm not a real resin expert. I bought a 2-part resin, and I also bought a UV resin. And that UV resin, I just, if I use it, I put the resin on the piece and I put it under my UV light and I wait for I don't know how many minutes, I forgot. But it cures that way. This one, 2-part resin, I put it on. Now, the one thing you have to be careful of in both cases is that the piece should be perfectly flat. Obviously, this wasn't perfectly flat. You know how I know? Look, I kind of missed a spot here. And it's thicker on this side than it is on this side. So, these are my earrings. They're not going anywhere because I wouldn't give away something like that. It's got to be far more perfect to give it away. So, the shoemaker's kids, sometimes they wear 2 left shoes. Okay, so that is the story of this resin. Now, in terms of the hardness, comparing both of them, they're about the same hardness. The liquid clay is not spongy and loose and, soft. It's hard, which is good because I think our old liquid, it didn't have the hardest finish. This finish is much harder. It may be more difficult to clear, but it gives you a surface that is much, much, much harder, which I like. This guy, nice and hard, yes. And if you look at the surface, the quality of the surface, it's much more smooth. I have to tell you guys, see, if you flash this, you can see that it is not of the same quality as this one. The resin levels more easily. The liquid levels, absolutely, but it seems it's a little bit thicker, or there's something about it. It doesn't level the same way. So that's why this is so much shinier and smoother. You run your fingers across, totally smooth. Run my fingers across here. I can feel it's just a little irregular, tiny bit. Does it bother me? Not particularly, but I wanted you to see and to understand what the differences are and perhaps why you might choose one or the other. Sometimes I have both in my studio, so I was like, what am I going to use? What am I going to use? Sometimes you only have that. Maybe you only have this. I just want to tell you, they both work. This requires an extra curing, however. This does not. So I think that's it. That's it on encasing. I'll be back. So here is another way we're going to make our earrings. Now, what I've done here is I just picked the nicest part. Like this is going to be the center of one earring, and this is going to be the center of the other, okay? So I kind of picked places I liked in the sheet, knowing that this is what will be in the earring, this will be in the earring as well. Then I kind of smoothed it in and I trimmed it neatly. Now mine happens to be, almost 1 3/4 inches across by almost 3 inches. All right, now I wasn't really happy, and I love it so much. I love gold leaf, but I will be honest with you, it is such a fragile finish that we are going to do this pair, and we are going to use liquid gold instead. Okay, now if you see any air pockets, just kind of pierce them and push them out. So let me just get this like so. And I'm going to trim the top straight across like that. Now let's measure. This part is the same. So I'm going to measure roughly 1/8 of an inch like that. Let me do the same on this side. There is a mark indicating 1/8 of an inch. And now I'm going to make an angled cut from the 1/8 of an inch down to that point. Let me align them best I can. Like so. Okay. Kind of disappears into nothing. Well, let me see if I can repeat that. On this side, I would very much like them to be the same. Yeah, it looks like there's just a tad more black down here, but there's a little less on the top. Okay, I'm gonna live with it. I think I'm just gonna live with it, because I could keep hacking away, and you know what's gonna happen? Yeah, you know. Okay, so let us take this guy, and I think I'm gonna do this. All right. Now, let's look. How does this look? I kind of think that's fine. Now, these are going out that way. Okay, let me give this a go. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it quite, but perhaps. Yes, okay, so that's better. So everything's kind of going out that way. You see? All right, now let's make our final cuts. So I'm going to go straight across the middle, roughly the middle, and I'm going to measure 3/16 here. And I'm actually measuring from this edge, right? The edge between the green and the black. I must do it on this side. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now from the other side of the black, let us do 1, 2, 3 again. And realign the ruler. Measure 1, 2, 3/8, like so. So I have 4 dots. Those 4 dots represent 3/8 of an inch. from this side, from right there, then 3/8 from there, 3/8 from there, and then 3/8 from there. I think you understand. Now I'm going to arc the blade and repeat that same process to cut. Like so. All right. From here through the pierced hole, boink, just like that. All right, let's do it on the other side. From here through the pierced hole to the tip of the leaf. Repeat from the tip of the leaf through the hole, and then finally right there where the green meets the black. Remove this. It'll be good for, oh, so many other things. All right, now let us put this in the oven and cure it. I'll be back. I just pulled these out of the oven and the tile is very hot. My oven is running hot. You can see it because it's so shiny on the surface, okay? Now, see how it's not perfectly smooth? I can improve that by taking a clean tile, difficult to find in my studio, putting it face down and pressing. Okay. And when I take it off, I will show you. So it's still a bit warm, but let me take it off. It's stuck. Okay. Let's separate the tiles. Okay. So I think you can see how much flatter it is than it was before. Now it's still a teeny bit lumpy, like in spots. And I hope to take care of that with some Abranet P320. So this is pretty fine for Abranet. When I really want to grind things down, I'm using the P80. So let's just take this and just lightly sand the surface. I was going to use the Micro Mesh 1500. It appears to be pretty much the same, to be honest with you. So I thought I'll do Abranet. Okay. Now on the other earrings, the sample earrings, one of the things, you know, I put a thick layer of liquid clay on the surface, and that was primarily to protect that gold leaf running down the middle. And I like the way it looks. However, what I don't like is the weight. That liquid made the earrings heavier. You know what? I like light earrings. They can be big, but they've got to be light. I don't want any pulling and tugging on my earlobes. And this feels great. Okay, it just feels really good. And I couldn't do this when I had that gold leaf running down the middle, could I? Oh, I might have been able to, like, carefully avoid the leaf somehow, but no, it wouldn't have been as good. You can trust me on that. So let me just finish sanding this. Now, rather than use gold leaf, I still want that gold look. So at this point, I've used black clay to represent the vein down the leaf. Right, that's what this black clay is. I am going to use liquid clay, my liquid gold. and I'm going to carefully paint it down on the black, pop it back in the oven. Okay, but I want to make sure that this is as smooth as it can be, because once I get this on it, I can't sand it. I'll be in that situation where I can't sand it again. And I like to sand my things because I want to be able to touch it, run my fingers across, and I want it to feel sort of satiny smooth. Okay. Okay, I think that's really good. So let me wipe it off, prepare, and then we are going to do a little painting. I could also use regular acrylic paint if I wanted to. I could paint this like that, and of course it just dries to cure, but I could if I wanted to. I don't really want to. I'm going to use the liquid. So here is the liquid gold, and you know what? I did stir it. I stirred it. And I am a really bad painter, so this is going to be painful to watch. Just know that I am going to paint the black area with liquid gold. I'm not going to make you watch me later. All right, so I just painted along the black. You know, you don't want any of course, of this gold on the sides, right? So you might want to take a nail and just run it along and make sure that you don't have any liquid that's kind of spilling over. Now, I did notice one thing. I have a space here. I didn't push it in quite tight enough. Bad me. Okay, so wait a minute. I see something. So here's a good example. I'm just going to take my nail and run it along right here, like so. Okay, now this is going in the oven. I'll be back. Here we are. These are cured. I cannot believe I left this huge space here. That's like the Grand Canyon running down the middle of the earring. Oh, well, I'm going to forgive myself for that. All right, let's look. Now, this is the liquid gold that I put on there. Okay, advantage, it's polymer. It is really stuck to the surface. Advantage, by using it, I was able to sand the whole piece before I put it on. I couldn't do that with these others. I mean, I just couldn't. So, I don't necessarily have to seal it in anything to protect the gold. That's an advantage too, isn't it? And finally, an advantage in weight. By not having to seal the top, I'm also keeping it as light as possible. This is important to me. I do not like heavy jewelry or heavy earrings, shall I say. Okay, this is nice and cold. I'm just going to remove them from the tile. They've been stuck to the tile all this time. And you can see air there. Now, is it important? Should I fill it in? When I do the back, you know what? I do have to fill it in because I'm going to be putting white clay in the back, because this is my 2/3 translucent mix. And so you might see the black clay that I'm going to back it with through the translucent. So I'm going to have to put white there, right? Okay, So I'm just going to take, and I'm going to take a little bit of black clay, and I'm going to try to work it right down in there so that at least when I put my black clay on the back, not going to see it. That is the least I can do. Holy Toledo. So this has kind of been an education. I haven't done this in a very, very long time. You know, there are so many techniques and there's only so much time in any day. And I had sort of ignored Mica Shift, and to be honest with you, I'm kind of sad I had, because it's been great fun for me to do this. So I want to thank John, who asked that I do it. Thank you, John, because I don't know if I would have gotten to Mica Shift without you asking. How's that? So I appreciate that, because I think I'm going to start using it myself. Okay, let me see. Yep, I did. I put the clay in there, but I still have more to put in. How about that? I can see right through it. This clay is very soft because this is black I made with blackout. So it's working itself in quite nicely without a lot of trouble. So there we go. Now, if I hadn't, I would have seen white underneath. As I was seeing white underneath. All right, so let me just try to just make sure it's really in there. And it is. And now I will take my blade and I will just scoot it across the back. All right, not perfect, but it's going to have to do. So let me prepare the things that I need next to finish these earrings. Now these earrings will be finished the same way the others were finished. I like them. Woohoo. So you're going to finish these the same way you finished the others. That's coming up. But I do want to point something out, because I don't want you guys to be confused, because in one tutorial I may do one thing, in another I might not do it. And you might be wondering why that is. Now, this is thin. We're going to put a very thin backing on it. And in other tutorials, I know I have said, take your Abra net, whatever, and soften this edge so that when you put that very thin textured clay on the back, that it doesn't crack along this edge. Well, I didn't give that advice, and I realized I should explain why. The reason is because, as you will shortly see, I'm putting that thin sheet of white on the back. And you know what? That thin sheet of white is actually, not only does it block any light from coming through this translucent part, but it also softens this edge. Okay? And so it wasn't really necessary to actually sand this, because this white clay that you're going to put on the back is softening that edge and making it easier for the black clay to go around and up on the sides. So I hope that's clear, because I don't want to confuse you guys, because I do one thing one time and then it doesn't happen, and you probably do wonder, because you're smart, so you're going to think, why the heck did she do that before and she didn't do that now? Well, it's because of this white clay that's going on the back. Ta-ta! A little bit of clarification there. So let's continue. We're going to actually back the pieces. Now, this obviously isn't what I was working on. You know, I thought I shot it, and evidently I didn't. So I have to shoot it now. How about that? Yes, this class has been, well, changed quite a bit. All right, so what I have here is white clay that I rolled through setting number 6, very thin. I'm going to take my liquid clay and put it along the back. Just like that. Not too much. You know, if you use too much liquid clay, it gets very slippery. So you don't necessarily want to use that much. And to tell you the truth, it doesn't really take that much. This is pretty generous, I would say. Okay. Now let's trim away the excess. And of course, I'm using this white to ensure that this blue doesn't get darker, because there's a lot of translucent in there, a lot. And you saw that the background, for instance, the background can certainly influence how it looks and how clear the colors are. All right, so now that is on. Now on this, I'm going to take black clay that I have rolled through setting 6, and I rolled it with my sponge. Now I was living a little dangerously, because if you roll it too thin, see, I'm picking out little bits of clay. You can actually kind of push it so deep into the sponge that you can't get it out. So, you know, if you're going to experiment with your clay and a sponge, perhaps you take a little piece and just try it and see what happens, so that you know how thin you can make it without creating a problem for yourself. All right, so let us just take a piece like so. And what I'm going to do is apply some liquid clay to the edge. And I didn't even sand the edge. Sometimes I do, just out of habit. This time I didn't. I didn't feel it was necessary. Let's take this and just put it on like so. Okay, great. Now I'm just going to take and gently push the clay from behind up along the sides. Like so. Now there's a lot of extra clay up here, so I'm going to trim that away. And here at the very top, I just take and I just kind of push it all up there. You see? So now the clay is coming from the back, wrapping around to the front. Blade or scalpel or any very sharp cutting instrument, and just glide this along like so. Okay. Now you're going to want to check, and you're going to make sure that this clay is not flapping out away from the cured piece. That's important. You don't want any of that. So before you cure, you're going to do that final check to make sure that everything's nice and snug. Good. Now, this particular pair, this is paint. It is not liquid gold, and it certainly isn't leaf. That is actually black clay that I applied a coat of acrylic paint to. All right. Now I'm going to take a needle, an acupuncture needle, and I'm going to pierce tiny holes all over the back so that if there's any air between the raw clay and the cured, or any air trapped anywhere, hopefully it will find one of these little holes and it will leave through the hole. I'm gonna grab one of my little oval jump rings, make sure that the opening is embedded in the clay, like so. Make sure you have enough open area here to get your finding through. That has to be large enough. Now I will take a very small round Kemper cutter, cut a little disc, pick it up. Oh, I forgot something really important. I need a little more liquid. That liquid will go right there over that jump ring. I want to encase it completely, like so. That's important. That bit of liquid clay is going to keep that ring right there. You see, I've taken that small disc, put it right over. Now I will press it, like so. Finally, you're going to look at it from the side and make sure that the ring is not angled one way or the other. You want it parallel to the back, like so. You see, like that, not angled forward or back. Finally, I'm going to take my signature cane, of course. Just a thin slice. Put it there. And when I cure these, because of that additional piece of clay here, it's not going to lie perfectly flat. So I bought these. This one's really a mess. Here, I have a better looking one right here. So I position it so that that clay is more or less in a hole, like so. Okay, and then it's cured. I think these were for ceramics. I don't know. I found them at a garage sale. Somebody was selling them. I bought them thinking, well, someday I'll use them for something. Okay, so there's one earring. I will do the other, and then I'll be back. Well, what started out as a little basic tutorial on Mica Shift turned into something else. And, you know, it just kind of grew. But I had a lot of fun doing it, actually. And I learned some things. You know, I hadn't done Mica Shift in a very, very long time. So this was really good for me to do again, because I think I'm going to do more of it. I really had fun doing this. I love these colors. As I said, I'm going to stick with the pearl mix because I do prefer these sort of grayed out violet and sort of a warmer turquoise. We talked about encasing, when you might need it, like when you're using, you know, gold leaf that's just going to chip off. You're going to want to protect it. And encasing is a really good way to do it, either with liquid clay or with resin, whatever you're more comfortable with, and providing you're armed with a good, strong heat gun. Okay, so I think that's kind of it. I have so many, so many pairs of earrings. Look at this. I think I'm going to have a giveaway shortly, and it won't just be one pair. It will be many, because these earrings are looking for a home. Okay, so dear friends, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please ask in our Facebook group. I think that might be the best place to communicate. And I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you have some fun with it. I really did enjoy making this class. So, I don't know what's next, but until we meet again, bye.